years to get Brady Bill passed, and it took even more years to work to pass the assault weapons ban. And it saved lives. No matter how long it takes, we're going to get these passed. We're not going to give up. We have an opportunity to fulfill the first responsibility of government, to keep our people safe. And in the process, we can show the world and show ourselves that democracy works, that we can come together and get big things done. When I look around and see such brave survivors sitting out here in the Rose Garden, public servants who devoted their lives to dealing with this, advocates who feel strongly and are pushing every day to make the rational changes, and courageous parents and family members, I know the progress, even in this most difficult of issues, is possible. So folks, this is just the start. We've got a lot of work to do, but I know almost every one of you sitting in the garden here, none of you ever given up. We're not going to give up now. The idea that we have so many people dying every single day from gun violence in America is a blemish on our character as a nation. Let me say to all of you, God bless you, but most importantly, the memory of all many of you have lost to the senseless gun violence. And now I'd like to hand it over to the Attorney General for him to speak and make some comments. And I hope I get a chance to see some of you after this is over. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President and Madam Vice President. We stand here today not at a moment of tragedy, but in the midst of an enduring tragedy. So far this year, guns have taken the lives of an estimated 11,000 of our neighbors, friends, and fellow Americans. As the President explained, gun deaths in our country are occurring at a staggering pace, on the order of about 100 Americans killed every day, with hundreds more wounded. I am under no illusions about how hard it is to solve the problem of gun violence, and I know that the Department of Justice alone cannot solve the problem. It is a problem that we must all work on together in a collective effort to keep guns out of the hands of criminals and save lives. But there is work for the department to do, and we intend to do it. Today, the Department of Justice is announcing several steps that we will take to keep guns out of the hands of criminals and reduce the risk of gun violence. First, we will ensure that we understand and measure the problem of criminal gun trafficking in a data-driven way. Over 20 years ago, ATF undertook a gun trafficking study. It then issued a report that provided information necessary to better understand and to combat criminal trafficking networks. No such study has been conducted since that time. Accordingly, I have directed ATF to begin work on an updated study of criminal gun trafficking, one that will take into account the fact that modern guns are not simply cast or forged anymore, but can also be made of plastic, printed on a 3D printer, or sold in self-assembly kits. We will evaluate how some of our best tools, including the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network and the National Tracing Center, are keeping up with the times. And we will analyze our criminal cases and investigations to determine what they can show us about modern gun trafficking patterns. We expect that the lessons from this study will help agents, prosecutors, and policymakers tackle modern criminal gun trafficking enterprises. Second, we will close a regulatory loophole that has contributed to the proliferation of so-called ghost guns. Federal law requires that manufacturers mark all firearms with serial numbers so they can be traced if they are used in crimes. It also requires licensed firearms dealers to run background checks to ensure that individuals who are barred by law from purchasing firearms cannot do so. The emergence of ghost guns threatens both of these important law enforcement objectives. Currently, individuals can buy kits that contain all or almost all of the parts they need to assemble a gun. They can put a working weapon together in as little as 30 minutes. The kits are aptly called buy, build, shoot kits. Yet because of a gap in the ATF regulations, these kits may not be considered firearms. As a result, they are being made and sold without serial numbers and sold without background checks. Within 30 days, ATF will issue a proposed rule to plug that gap and to enable law enforcement to trace crime guns and to keep guns from being sold to those who cannot lawfully possess them. Third, we will make clear that statutory restrictions on short-barreled rifles apply when certain stabilizing braces are added to high-powered pistols. Federal law requires the taxation and registration of all short-barreled rifles. It does so because these weapons are powerful, yet easily concealable. Currently, however, some manufacturers market and some individuals purchase certain kinds of stabilizing braces that, when attached to a pistol, effectively convert it into a short-barreled rifle, a weapon that is, in the words of the statute, quote, intended to be fired from the shoulder. Such braces make high-powered pistols more stable and accurate while still concealable. Within 60 days, ATF will issue a proposed rule that will make clear that when a device marketed as a stabilizing device effectively turns a pistol into a short-barreled rifle, it is subject to the requirements of the statute. Fourth, we will publish model red flag legislation for states. Red flag laws, as the President has explained, allow family members or law enforcement to petition for court orders that temporarily bar people in crisis from accessing firearms if they present a danger to themselves or to others. 19 states and the District of Columbia have already made this important step. Within 60 days, the Justice Department will publish model legislation that will make it easier for states that want to craft laws permitting such emergency risk orders to do so. Fifth, we will empower our communities to combat and prevent gun violence. We all recognize that although law enforcement plays an important role, gun violence is not a problem that law enforcement alone can solve. Communities are an essential partner, an asset, and a source of resources and ideas. Those who are closest to the problem are a critical part of solving the problem. To that end, the Justice Department will make available over $1 billion in funding through over a dozen grant programs that can be used to support evidence-based intervention strategies for reducing gun violence. Such strategies include, but are not limited to, street outreach, violence interrupters, and hospital-based violence intervention services. I have directed all of our grant-making components to make community violence intervention and prevention a priority. Finally, none of these measures or any of the other critical law enforcement work the Department does with respect to illegal guns can be effectively carried out without strong leadership. That is why the President has nominated David Shipman to be the next ATF director. Mr. Shipman has come up through the ranks, spending 25 years in the trenches fighting illegal gun trafficking and criminal enterprises. His extensive experience as an ATF agent will prove invaluable and I look forward to working with him. Looking out at many of you is not only a reminder of the tragic toll that gun violence takes on our communities, but also of the resilience and determination that it will take to make our communities safer. The Department of Justice shares your commitment and that of the President and of the Vice President to stopping the plague of gun violence and saving the lives of those we love. Thank you.
I wasn't supposed to do that. I'd like to see all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's get to work.
From your local election headquarters, this is Battleground Florida. Here's Evan Donovan.
Participants have departed.
You've been watching President Joe Biden live in the Rose Garden outside of the White House, talking about new executive actions he will take on gun violence to try to curb the epidemic America is currently facing. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on Battleground Florida, the digital edition. Evan Donovan, your political anchor for WFLA News Channel 8 here, and JB Buno, our digital anchor on the left-hand side of your screen. Thanks so much for being here with us. For those of you who are just joining us, about a 30-minute press conference there from President Joe Biden announcing a number of measures he's going to take on gun violence. None of them really that controversial, I don't believe. I don't see anything that's going to be truly, a big roadblock, I think, in getting them passed. I mean, obviously, if he's going to take executive actions, there's not much that that Republicans who oppose them could do anyway. But some of these could be legislative priorities after they spur some action. We'll see. The number of steps he's going to take, about 4 or 5 here. He's asking the Attorney General what he can do without Congress. He is going to first rein in the proliferation of ghost guns. Those are guns that you can make at home from a kit. In some cases, pieces have been printed by those 3D printers, or there's other kits that you can make those guns from. He's saying that he wants to make those kits treated as firearms, meaning the seller and manufacturer would have to print serial numbers on key parts, and they'd have to do background checks on buyers. He's also going to ask for a new annual report from the DOJ on gun violence to help policymakers. He is also introducing a third change. He wants to treat pistols with stabilizing braces differently, make them subject to the National Firearms Act, which would require special permission to buy them, similar to if you were going to buy a silencer. That is a third change. That one addressed specifically at the gunman in Boulder, Colorado, who apparently or allegedly used something similar to that. And that is why that is partially among the changes that President Biden is introducing. Fourth, he also wants states to adopt extreme risk protection laws, better known as red flag laws, which we have here in the state of Florida in some regard. And there's always legislative measures to bolster those laws here in the state. He wants those, while he can't introduce them federally without Congress, to be models for states that want to adopt them. And that's the reason why he had Attorney General Merrick Garland come up to talk about how they would specify what sort of the leading experts think are the best laws that you could use in that regard, those red flag laws, models for states to base their legislation off of. And then his fifth change was that he is hiring a new director of the ATF. JB, the first person to officially lead the ATF since 2015, which is just a statement about how little sometimes gets done up in D.C. But David Chipman, who is a gun control advocate, will be the new director of the ATF.
Yeah, and we're going to hear from you here in the Facebook Live comment section here, folks. You, again, can use hashtag HeyEvan, hashtag HeyJBC in the bottom right-hand portion of your screen. We're less than 8 minutes away from your poll results we've received, and I'll just get an updated count here on the staggering number of votes. This is clearly an issue that people are paying very close attention to here as, again, President Joe Biden issuing or signing into law executive orders pertaining to gun restrictions, and we've received now more than 2,000 almost 3,000 votes here in our interactive poll, which is, should our leaders do something about gun violence? That's coming up next here. And let's get to some of the comments that are coming in now. If you want your comment featured here on screen on Battleground Florida, you know how it works. Use hashtag HeyEvan, hashtag HeyJB, and we'll start to throw them up here on screen. How about Terry Butts here? Hashtag HeyEvan, tell Biden to fight for criminal control and stop inviting them in and leave our guns alone. So there's going to be a lot of folks, of course, that we have here in the Facebook Live comment section who feel that their Second Amendment rights are being infringed upon here. Again, we're going to try to throw up as many comments here from both sides of the issue, but we can only feature comments, again, if you use one of the hashtags that we have here on your screen.
And Terry actually going after illegal immigration there as well.
Yeah, mentioning, of course, illegal immigration. Michael Barr here, hashtag AJB. What about all these ghost guns or kits that have already been purchased? How will they be collected? And as I understand it, Evan, the law, of course, will ban the sale of these ghost guns and kits, but the ones that are already purchased, of course, it makes it extremely difficult to regulate something that's already in the hands of Americans. So,
and keep in mind, these are broad strokes. I mean, the president just introducing these this afternoon. I'm sure we'll get more details as the days go by.
And then we have Larry here with, I think, a bit of a rhetorical question. Hashtag AJB, do you think criminals will listen to these executive orders? And we'll, again, be looking for your hashtag AJB, hashtag HeyEvan comments here in the Facebook Live comment sections. We're about 6 minutes away from your poll results.
To Larry's point there, part of what the president is doing is outlawing the sale of, for example, ghost guns to criminals. So you wouldn't be able to buy one if you're a criminal. Doesn't mean they don't find other ways to get them, but obviously making their lives more difficult is something we should probably do.
Let's get to some others. Thank you, Larry, for your comment. I see a lot of hashtag HeyEvan, a lot of hashtag AJB comments coming in. Alan here, hashtag AJB, let them try and take them. So anytime, of course, that we have a conversation that pertains to gun control legislation or gun control executive orders, it immediately invokes a passionate response, especially for gun right advocates that are out there. And we're starting to see that here in the Facebook Live comment section. But for what it's worth, based on what we're hearing, of course, in Washington, there are many political pundits out there that believe that this was a very minor set of rules introduced here by the Biden administration. There are some that are calling on President Biden, on Vice President Harris, on really the White House to be doing more here, that they did not do enough. So how limited are these gun restrictions, I think, is a relative thing that we can perhaps discuss here with our Facebook fans. One more comment here, Clayton, hashtag AJB. Doesn't the Second Amendment state the right to bear arms? Not what kind of arms is it? Okay, so talking here about those ghost gun kits that Biden is banning.
We can address that. So the Second Amendment has never been an unlimited right, and that's not coming from me. That's coming from a famous Supreme Court decision decided by a mostly conservative Supreme Court. Antonin Scalia, who is a conservative jurisprudent, said very famously in that case that the Second Amendment is not an unlimited right, doesn't give you the right to carry whatever weapon you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. And that sensible legislation about guns is part of the law and always has been. So it's very simple. The legislature, in this case Congress, or through executive action, the president can certainly issue executive orders that talk about which types of weapons you're allowed to carry. That's nothing. That's not new. That's been happening throughout the history of our country.
Clayton, thanks for your comment. Got a bunch more coming in here. Lisa Nagel, hashtag AJB. Biden, leave our guns, our Second Amendment rights alone, is the comment here from Lisa. How about Pee-wee and Sissy Skinner here, hashtag AJB. What's your thoughts? I've also seen hashtag Evan Evan, what's your thoughts? As a reminder here, we do Battleground Florida, we do WFLA Now, we do this to hear your opinions, not our own. It's more about gaining sort of an idea as to how you're feeling out there, and that's why our poll results here in about 3 minutes or so from now are going to be so fascinating to see what the final results are.
I can answer that question from a political perspective. In other words, like what are my thoughts about this politically?
More like semantics?
Yeah, no, not semantics, like not the words of what he's saying, but basically, how will it impact things politically? How will it impact him? Remember that everything that a president tries to do requires an effort. Unless he's just got a huge windfall in both chambers of Congress and can pass whatever he wants, which obviously hasn't happened in our country for either side in quite some time. And I mean, when I mean pass whatever they want, I mean a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate as well, which we haven't seen in a really long time. So presidents have to expend political capital to get things passed that they want to get passed. And sometimes if you upset people, then you get in your own way of getting your priorities passed. Because remember, everybody's got a lot of different priorities. It's what you think is most important. Those are the things you tackle first, because you never know what's going to happen down the road, and you never know what kind of capital you're going to use up getting the things passed that you want done first. So in this regard, these seem like things that he can get done without upsetting a whole lot of people. There's nothing that even comes close to touching the Second Amendment here. These are things that will likely not make a huge splash on either side. So I don't think there's a lot that that Republicans or gun advocates would be that upset about, other than extreme gun advocates do believe that there should be no limit on those 3D printed guns or on design kit guns. I understand that. But for the most part, I think that's not where the majority of Americans are based on the polling. But it's also not going to make a big splash on the left either. I think there's a lot of people who are gun control advocates who would like to see the administration do more, particularly in the wake of 2 mass shootings, and now 3, basically, if you think about the one that he just mentioned this morning. So he's kind of trying to go down the middle. I don't know how that's going to work for him.
Let's get to some other comments here, about a minute or so away from our poll results here. I think we've way past the 3,000 vote mark here on that poll. Christy Whiteside here, hashtag HeyJB. Why don't they do something about mental health? Criminals are going to get guns. I want to protect myself.
So they are, Christy. That's part of what he was talking about, is those extreme risk protection laws, or the red flag laws. Those are things that enable you to notify authorities if, like women who are in domestic violence situations, or, people who see the mental health state of one of their friends or family members is declining and they are becoming more erratic, or they're going, in a bad place or with a bad group, or, they're starting to become more violent. All those types of things, increasing the options that people have to notify authorities that this person shouldn't have guns because of their mental health state. Those are all kind of lumped in under red flag laws. And so increasing the ability for states to react swiftly when their citizens see someone in that type of situation, those are really important. And so they are doing that, Christy. That's a great point.
We'll get to 2 more questions here, or comments. Again, hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyEvan. We'll be here another 5 or so minutes on WFLA Now reading your comments. We're going to get to our poll results here in just 1 second. Antoinette Arnold, hashtag HeyJB, gun control now, calling for gun control now. And then how about Kristen Wilgis Scott, hashtag HeyJB. Something needs to be done about gun violence, yes, but taking them out of the hands of law-abiding citizens isn't the answer. Criminals don't follow the laws. Kristen, thanks a lot for your comment here. This is a perfect segue here to our poll question, because Evan and I were talking about the best way to phrase our poll question here in advance of this stream, and we came up with this particular question, and it's a very broad question that Evan actually was the architect of, asking, should our leaders do something about gun violence? Not gun control, not just anything, something about gun violence. Of course, we've had 10 dead with the Boulder shooting. We had 8 dead in the Atlanta spa shootings. We have 5 dead, I believe, or potentially 6 in South Carolina with what's unfolding today in South Carolina. So all that information, of course, on WFLA.com. But we asked, should our leaders do something, anything, about gun violence? And here are our poll results. 34% say yes, 66%. About 2/3 of our poll respondents say no, don't do anything. our elected leaders shouldn't do anything pertaining to gun violence here in this country. Again, that could be education on mental health. That could be additional resources for those struggling with mental health. 66% say don't do anything at all. I think we were anticipating perhaps this being a little bit closer to the 50-50 mark, but there you have it. Our poll results 65% saying our elected leaders shouldn't do anything about gun violence. Use hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyEvan. We'll look for some of your responses here.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So I was just going over, there's a Quinnipiac poll from 2 years ago, right after that spate of gun violence, when we had mass shootings in Dayton and El Paso, that you all remember, that were within 24 hours of each other. So similar to now, right after 2 mass incidents of gun violence. Quinnipiac did a poll asking the same question: should leaders do something about gun laws? And 61% of Americans said yes, they were in favor of stricter gun laws. That was at the time when President Trump was talking about his openness, effectively, to more red flag laws and to better background checks, more intelligent background checks, I think he was saying about them. So that was kind of a moment there where a lot of people were saying they should do something more. But the breakdown is often by party. In that particular poll, it was 91% of Democrats thinking gun laws should be stricter, as well as 60% of independents, but only 32% of Republicans. So I think that's where you kind of see that divide right there. In terms of the things we're talking about today, again, the only things I think that people who are, very big gun rights advocates will be upset about is the background checks on buyers of ghost guns and making those key parts with serial numbers. Treating the pistols with stabilizing force differently as well may be something that may encounter some resistance. But I think in general, those are things that aren't likely to raise a lot of red flags, no pun intended.
We have I'm going to throw this up here on screen because I think that this is interesting, because I completely disagree with this comment here. Once it loads up here on screen here, folks, just give us a second here. Facebook basically gives us the comments that we can put up again with hashtag HeyEvan, hashtag HeyJB, and then we can animate them up here on screen. And Zachary Houghton, hashtag JB, your poll is a trick question. It's not as simple as a yes or no. I'm just going to respectfully disagree, just because all we're asking here with this particular poll is, should our leaders do something? Right. Should our leaders take any form of action to address the gun violence in this country? Again, 10 dead in Boulder. We had 8 dead in Atlanta, 5 dead or more in South Carolina. This is, again, a pressing issue. It has been a pressing issue, of course, in this country for so long. So we're just asking, it was a very straightforward question. Do you think that your leaders, your elected leaders, should do something regarding this particular issue? We're not saying attack Second Amendment right. We're talking about anything at all, any action to help curb what is happening with gun violence in this country. And again, 65% of our poll respondents said no.
And what I would love to know what he meant by that. Please feel free to hashtag again. Tell us what you mean, if there's something that you thought. A
couple others here. Sharon Doby, hashtag HAB. How many guns do people need? It only takes 1 bullet to protect yourself. Sharon here with the comment here in the Facebook Live comment section. Lauren Dominique, hashtag HAB. Why should I have to fear my 4-year-old entering kindergarten because assault rifles are still allowed? I'm all about basic gun rights, but enough is enough, is the comment here from Lauren Dominique. So we've got some comments coming up, in here from both sides of the issue. Again, we're going to spend another about 3. It's pretty much a last call for questions or comments. Hashtag HeyEvan, hashtag HeyJB here in the Facebook Live comment section. Of course, with gun violence here in the state of Florida, this is something that's near and dear to a lot of people here, whether you're for additional gun control legislation being passed or you're against it and you feel like it would be an attack on your Second Amendment rights. This is something that just about everybody that you talk to will have an opinion of one way or another.
I saw there was an interesting split right there, just based on those last couple comments. You started to see more women who were in favor of more gun control measures. That is a split that you tend to see when this issue is polled as well. That Quinnipiac poll I mentioned from last May that said 61% of Americans wanted to see something done. Women were 68% in favor of some measures to control guns, and only 53% of men. So you tend to see that divide among the sexes as well. Interestingly enough, in that poll, this is just a fascinating as well. Both men and women, black respondents to that poll, black people, 85% were in support of stricter gun laws.
You're talking about the Quinnipiac poll, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which was how long?
That was May of 2 years ago, August of 2 years ago. It was right after that spate of double mass shootings in Dayton and El Paso, the two back-to-back. Remember that? In 24 hours over a weekend. It was a terrible weekend.
It seems to gun violence in this country. It seems to come in. We see them bunched together a lot. I mean, just really. I mean, in the last 6 weeks, the 10 dead in Boulder, 8 dead in Atlanta, 5 dead today in South Carolina. It's been a troubling trend of late of these last few weeks.
The pandemic was a really tough year. 2020 was awful, but that's maybe one of the good things that came out of it. There just weren't many mass shootings.
We did not see as many mass shootings, without a doubt, during the pandemic as we did.
That's all dependent
previous
on
or now in the last
how
6
you
weeks.
define those. I think the FBI is now defining them as 4 people shot at one time. Forgive me, that may not even be the FBI's definition. I have to look that up because the definitions on that are changing. There is no official definition of what a mass shooting is, so you really kind of depend on who's doing the study.
Couple of last comments here again. Hashtag Hey Evan, hashtag Hey JB. If you don't want your comment to be featured here on screen, if you just don't want it to be on a news live stream such as ours, it's totally okay. Just don't comment with one of the hashtags. If you would like your comment to be featured, again, use the hashtag.
Quick update right there. As I mentioned, the FBI doesn't have a definition for mass shooting. Right. It has a definition for mass killing, which is 3 or more, but that could be by any method. So that's not the same thing.
Shannon Yeager here. Hashtag Hey JB. People have been murdered for centuries all over the world. Taking guns is not the answer here. Your mental status is what needs to be checked. Second Amendment rights should not be infringed. No. And then
again, just a reminder, Shannon, mental health was all part of the package that the president introduced.
Yeah, and Melissa Wilson also here. Hashtag Evan. It's not about gun control. It's about mental health. When will we address that?
Melissa, again, President Biden introducing model legislation for red flag laws that states can adopt. That's all about mental health.
One last time here, folks. We're going to throw up the poll results here on your screen. Even a couple of hundred extra new votes have just come in here in the last several minutes. Should our leaders do something about gun violence? Anything at all? 66% say no. 34% say yes. And those are your final results here during this live stream. Of course, voting can continue as the video remains here on social media, on Facebook, to be watched here in a non-live capacity. But all of your information, of course, pertaining to what President Biden announced today can be found on WFLA.com and the WFLA app. Any final thoughts here, Evan Donovan?
No, I think very interesting responses from people. Thank you so much for participating. We'd love to hear from you. Again, just to make sure, I know a lot of you brought up mental health, and it's a great point that mental health is a big part of this. Just remember, and again, to just shore that up, one of the measures that President Biden was introducing there is model legislation that states can adopt for red flag laws. That's all about mental health, taking guns out of the hands of dangerous people when their friends or their family members or their coworkers recognize that they're not quite right in the head, something's going on, maybe someone needs to intervene, could be a temporary thing, could be permanent. There's all kinds of situations covered by those red flag laws, and that's why that was part of what the president introduced today. Also, keep in mind, mental health is important, but there are no mental health differences really among developed countries when you're comparing qualities of life, things like that. They're all in the same type of range. And our mass shootings, our deaths by suicide, our homicides are all way, way more than all of the other developed nations that are basically our peers, Europe, et cetera. And they don't have the same gun problem that we do. So, mental health is certainly very important, but it's only part of the problem.
If you want more information here, folks, on what Biden announced today, what the president announced today alongside AG Merrick Garland and Vice President Kamala Harris. That's on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. More Battleground Florida streams in the weeks ahead. Thanks so much for joining us.